The hangar was silent. Not the normal kind of silence, but the heavy, almost angry kind. A row of alien engineers stood around the massive silver starship, their long, scaled fingers twitching with frustration. For 3 days, the ship had refused to move. Not an inch. Its engines worked. Its weapons worked. The navigation system was flawless. But the moment anyone tried to take off, the ship shut itself down. It wasn't broken. It was refusing. Zirith, the shipyard commander, slammed his four-clawed hand on the hull. It's a machine. Machines don't decide who flies them. But deep down, every alien in that hangar felt the same quiet fear. Maybe this ship wasn't just a machine. They had tried everything. Veteran pilots from across the galaxy. Combat AIs with perfect reflexes. Even a neural override system to force the ship to fly. Nothing worked. Rumors had already started spreading through the fleet. Some said the ship was haunted. Others whispered that its AI was awake and that it didn't like aliens. That's when a human walked in. He wasn't even a pilot, just a maintenance tech covered in grease stains, holding a toolbox. His name was Daniel Cross. "You guys still having trouble with this diva of a ship?" he asked, smirking. The aliens glared at him. Humans weren't respected in this fleet. They were seen as too reckless, too unpredictable. But when Daniel casually stepped into the pilot's chair, the ship woke up. Every light on the console lit up. The engines roared to life. The control systems purred like a content predator. The alien engineers froze. The commander's jaw dropped. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Guess she just needed a human touch. The ship's AI spoke for the first time in weeks. Its voice was deep, almost protective. Finally, a pilot worth following. And that was the moment everyone realized this wasn't about systems or engines. The ship had been waiting. Not for anyone. Not for an alien war hero. But for a human. What none of them knew yet was why. The Starship Eclipsera floated in the docking bay like a sleeping beast. Its silver body reflected the light of the station's lamps, but inside, it was silent. For weeks, the crew had tried everything. Resetting systems, replacing engines, even bringing in alien engineers from 5 different worlds. Yet the moment they tried to launch, the ship's systems locked down, refusing to respond. Captain Velrin, a tall, four-eyed alien with skin like polished stone, slammed his hand on the console. "Why won't you fly?" he growled, his voice echoing through the control deck. No answer, just the soft hum of idle power. The Eclipsera was special, not just a warship, but one of the most advanced vessels in the galaxy. Its AI, named Core, was famous for never making mistakes. But now, Core had become stubborn, almost alive in its refusal to move. For the crew, it was more than frustrating, it was humiliating. The Galactic Council was watching, and rival captains whispered that Velrin had lost control of his own ship. On the observation deck, First Officer Lura crossed her arms. "Captain, we've tried every pilot, every species, even the best cybernetic minds." Velrin nodded slowly. "And every time, Core shuts them out." Lura's voice lowered. "Some of the crew think the ship is cursed." Velrin didn't believe in curses. But as he stared at the darkened pilot's chair, a chill ran down his spine. Something about it felt wrong. 2 days later, a stranger walked into the docking bay. He was human, tall but not imposing. His clothes were plain, his hands tucked into his pockets. His eyes scanned the ship with quiet curiosity, like he was meeting an old friend. The crew watched him with suspicion. Humans were rare out here. Most species knew of them, but few had actually met one. Velrin stepped forward. "You are not authorized to be here." The human smiled faintly. "I heard you've got a ship that doesn't like flying." "Not your concern," Velrin replied sharply. But before anyone could stop him, the human walked straight up the boarding ramp and into the cockpit. "Hey!" Lura shouted. "Get him out of there." The man ignored her. He placed his hand gently on the back of the pilot's chair. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, bzzz. The entire ship came to life. Lights flickered on. Consoles glowed. The hum of the engines rose like the growl of a waking predator. Velrin froze. "What?" The human sat in the chair, and the controls responded instantly. The ship's AI spoke for the first time in weeks. its voice calm, almost relieved. Pilot recognized. Systems online. Gasps filled the deck. Luro whispered, It's alive. Valerin stepped closer. Who are you? The human didn't answer. He simply smiled and tightened his grip on the controls. And then, without waiting for orders, the Eclipsera slowly lifted from the dock. For the first time in months, it was flying. But deep inside the AI's code, a hidden protocol activated. A quiet message flashed across the captain's private screen. Human pilot detected. Mission classified. The hangar was not quiet anymore. As soon as the great ship moved under Jackson's hands, alarms rang. Not because of danger, but because the impossible had just happened. For months, the crew of the Silver Wind had tried to start the ship. Engineers, alien mechanics, even the best pilots of the Union Navy, none could make it lift an inch. It was called cursed, dead, a relic that refused life. Now it was awake. Commander Viral, tall and armored in silver plates, stormed toward the cockpit. His 4 eyes were wide, 2 in shock, 2 in disbelief. Stop! Stop the ship, he barked. His voice shook. Not with fear. No, this was something stranger. Jackson froze, his hands still on the strange, glowing controls. Did I do something wrong? The commander's face twisted. Human, you don't understand what you've touched. Behind him, dozens of alien crew members gathered. Some whispered in their own languages. Some just stared like they were looking at a ghost. One alien mechanic, an insectoid with long arms, spoke in clicks and hisses. The translation device hummed. It chose him. The ship chose the human. Jackson blinked. Shuzma? What are you talking about? It's just a ship. The commander slammed a clawed hand against the wall. Not just a ship. That vessel is the last living warship of the ancients. It is bound to one pilot only. And until now, that pilot has been dead for 10,000 years. The room fell silent. Jackson slowly removed his hands from the controls, and the ship's soft humming stopped instantly. The lights on the console went dark, like a sleeping beast losing interest. Gasps filled the hangar. One of the younger officers whispered, It obeys him, and only him. Jackson gave an awkward laugh. That's neat, I guess. But why does everyone look like I just doomed the galaxy? Viral stepped closer, his voice low. Because the last time the ship flew, a star died. A cold shiver ran through Jackson's spine. He looked at the now quiet console, then at the sea of alien faces watching him. None of them looked happy. None looked relieved. They looked afraid. The darkness of space was calm. Too calm. From the watchtower deck of the colony station, Lieutenant Mara pressed her hands against the cold glass. The stars glittered like dust over black velvet, but she was not looking at the stars. She was looking at them. On the edge of the scanner's range, the shapes appeared. Not single ships, but a wall. A moving shadow. The enemy fleet. They're here, the radar officer whispered, almost as if saying it louder would make it real. The alien ships were strange to the human eye. Long, sharp, and bone-white, as if carved from some giant creature's skeleton. Their hulls reflected no light. They moved in perfect silence, sliding closer like predators in deep water. Mara's stomach tightened. She had read the reports. How these invaders stripped planets bare, leaving nothing alive. But reports were words. This was real. Captain Darren stepped onto the deck. He didn't shout, didn't panic. His voice was steady like steel. Confirm numbers. The radar officer swallowed. Sir, 83 warships. And something bigger. At the center, the crew exchanged nervous glances. Everyone had heard the rumors of the flagship. A vessel the size of a small moon. They're moving in formation, the officer continued. Estimated time to weapons range, 13 minutes. Mara's fingers curled into fists. The colony wasn't built for war. Their defense grid was small. Their fleet, only 3 patrol ships, one of which was still docked for repairs. And yet, no one ran. No one screamed. The humans stood in silence, watching the shadow grow. Because somewhere deep inside, every human here carried the same thought. We've been underestimated before. The enemy's lead ships broke formation, spreading like claws. Scanners picked up their first energy surge, weapons charging. Mara's heart pounded. They're going to fire first. Captain Darren didn't look away from the glass. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. Let them. The crew stared at him in shock. Sir, they think they know us, Darren said quietly. They think they've seen what humans can do. They haven't. The alien fleet kept coming. 13 minutes became 10, then 9. Every second was a drumbeat, pushing the moment closer. Mara kept her eyes on the largest ship in the center, the flagship. She couldn't explain why, but she felt as if it was looking right back at her. Somewhere far below, deep inside the colony's core, something old, something not in the public records, began to wake. The enemy thought they were approaching prey. They were wrong. The training base smelled of metal and old oil. The walls were lined with strange alien machines, each one humming softly like it was alive. Outside the bay, the colony still burned in patches, smoke drifting against the stars. Captain Wren stood in front of the human, a tall, quiet man named Cole, holding something that looked like a silver glove with glowing veins. This, Wren said, voice low, is not a weapon. It is the key to the ship. Without it, you cannot make her move. With it, he paused, his golden eyes narrowing. You might survive. Cole slid the glove on. It was warm, like it knew his skin. The moment it locked into place, the room seemed to tilt. Whoa, he muttered. The air around him shifted. His mind was filled with flashes, a cockpit view, starfields rushing past, the curve of a massive alien warship. Wren stepped closer. The ship will not obey commands. It obeys instincts. If you think like a soldier, you will fail. If you think like prey, you will die. Cole swallowed hard. And if I think like a human? Wren's face darkened. Then we will see. They climbed into the training simulator, a round chamber where walls became sky. The ship's voice filled Cole's head, female and cold. Pilot recognized. Limited control granted. Cole gripped the controls. They didn't feel like controls. They felt like muscles, his muscles. When he pulled left, the world spun. When he pushed forward, stars blurred. Suddenly, alarms blared. On the horizon, 3 red lights appeared, moving fast. Wren's voice came sharp. Enemies. Now show me if you can fly, or if you crash like the rest of your kind. The red lights grew bigger. Cole's pulse pounded. He didn't know the controls, but his hands, no, the ship, moved on its own. The first enemy fighter fired. Cole jerked the ship sideways, narrowly avoiding the shot. Wren stared, eyes wide. Impossible. Cole grinned. Guess we're learning together. But the red lights were multiplying, and they were getting closer. The alarm lights turned the ship's corridors into a storm of flashing red. The hum of the engines, which had been calm and steady before, now roared like a beast ready to leap. Every soldier on board felt the vibration under their boots. It wasn't just the ship moving. It was the crew's pulse sinking with the tension in the air. Commander Hale stood on the bridge, hands gripping the rail, so tight his knuckles turned white. Target locks confirmed. Weapons hot. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed a cold fire. He had been in battles before, but this wasn't just another fight. This was the fight, the one that would decide whether Earth's weakest colony lived or vanished into history. Through the massive viewing glass, the enemy fleet appeared like a wall of silver blades slicing through space. Their ships were sleek, fast, and armed with weapons that could tear a battleship apart in seconds. The colony's defense force? A single cruiser, 2 outdated escorts, and the unmovable ship that had only just agreed to fly. The crew worked in perfect sync. Ensign Mara, the youngest on the bridge, called out radar updates, her voice rising with urgency. Multiple enemy contacts, speed increasing. They're coming straight at us. Hale gave the order. All hands, battle stations. The first volley from the enemy struck before the human ships could fire. Shields flared, groaned, and dimmed. The escorts shook under the impact, but they held. Sparks rained down from an overhead console, and the smell of burnt wiring filled the air. Return fire. Halebarkit. The cruiser's main cannons roared, sending twin blasts of blue plasma into the nearest enemy ship. The impact lit up the darkness, tearing through alien armor like it was paper. The enemy vessel spun, venting fire and debris into the void. But the others didn't slow. They came in waves, firing in precise formations, trying to overwhelm human defenses. The escorts moved like wolves protecting the Alpha, weaving and intercepting incoming fire. And then the unmovable ship moved. It didn't just fly, it charged. Its engines flared with a strange, almost living glow, and it cut through the enemy formation like a predator among prey. It ignored incoming fire, charging headfirst into the largest alien battleship. Collision course? Are they? Mara started, but Hale interrupted. They know what they're doing. At the last second, the mysterious ship opened fire. Not with plasma, not with missiles, but with something entirely new. A burst of energy erupted, folding space around the alien battleship. In an instant, the massive ship imploded, crushed under forces no human weapon had ever used before. Silence fell over the comms for half a second. Then the enemy began to break formation. "They're retreating," Mara whispered. Hill didn't smile. He knew this wasn't over. The first battle was won, but the war had just begun. The night over New Vegas sky burned red. Ships, both alien and human, flashed like angry fireflies, their explosions painting the darkness. The colony was on its last breath, but no one dared to say it aloud. Commander Hale stood on the roof of the half-destroyed command post, his jaw tight, his rifle slung across his back. Below him, the streets were filled with hurried footsteps, engineers carrying power cells, medics dragging the wounded, and civilians trying to find shelter that no longer existed. The alien warships had circled in close, their giant shadow swallowing the colony. They were not here to capture. This was extermination. "Commander," a voice crackled in his earpiece. It was Rin, the alien defector who had fought alongside them for the past 2 days. "They are bringing the Vorn-class siege walkers. If they reach your central reactor, this colony will be glass." Hale glanced over the ruined city. "Then we make sure they don't reach it." He called his team over. There were only 19 now. Half of them limped. Several carried weapons they barely knew how to use. But they stood ready. No one backed away. "This is it," Hale said. "They think we're broken. Let's show them what humans do when there's nowhere left to run." The air screamed as the first siege walker landed, its massive legs smashing through the ground. Sparks lit up the street. The enemy troops moved behind it like a living wall of armor. Hale gave one order: "Break them." They split. 2 snipers took to the rooftops. 3 demolition experts rigged the narrow streets with mines. The walkers advanced, crushing everything in their path. Then the trap sprung. The first mine exploded under a walker's leg, sending the massive machine crashing into a building. Snipers targeted exposed alien crews. Hale charged into the smoke, his team following without hesitation. Hand-to-hand combat erupted in the rubble. The humans fought like cornered wolves, fast, vicious, relentless. Even the injured fought as if pain didn't exist. Rin's voice came through again. "Reinforcements will take 5 minutes." Hale ducked under a plasma blast. "We won't last 5, but we'll make sure they don't either." The ground shook. Another walker exploded. Alien screams filled the air, and for the first time, the enemy hesitated. It was enough. Hale stood bleeding, exhausted, but grinning like a man who refused to die, quietly. "This is our home," he shouted over the chaos. "If you want it, you'll have to bury us with it." The last stand had begun, and the aliens realized too late they were already losing. The enemy flagship split open like a cracked egg. Flames and debris spilled into the void. For a heartbeat, no one on Aurora's edge spoke. Then in the silence, the crew realized this was it. It had been exactly 7 minutes since the alien fleet had arrived. 7 minutes since they believed Earth's weakest colony would fall without a fight. 7 minutes since the first warning blip had appeared on their battered radar. Now the sky outside was littered with drifting wreckage. Enemy warships, larger, stronger, and faster, were gone. Every single one. But the victory hadn't come without a cost. Commander Rourke's voice broke the silence. "Status report." The reply was shaky. "Shields at 12%, engine stable. Casualties minimal. Minimal. That word didn't feel right. The ship was bleeding from 100 wounds, the crew still shaking from the violent maneuvers and explosions. Yet they were alive, and the enemy wasn't. In the observation bay, a young cadet, barely out of training, stared at the wreckage. Her voice was almost a whisper. They thought we were weak. Rourke glanced at her. They still think it. And that's exactly why they lost. The truth was brutal but simple. The aliens had underestimated them. They hadn't counted on Aurora's Edge being more than a ship. It was a weapon born from desperation. Every move, every shot, every calculated risk had been born not from strength, but from the refusal to die quietly. As the 7th minute passed, Earth's weakest colony sent a single encrypted message back home. Enemy fleet destroyed. Time taken, 7 minutes. Send cleanup crew. Across the galaxy, the message would spread. Some would laugh. Others would panic. But one thing was certain. No one would ever call this colony weak again.